There's a special breed of people nowadays, the self-proclaimed world travelers who land in Istanbul armed with €5 and a firm belief that they should live like sultans. They arrive in Istanbul expecting to pay 50 cents for a feast, 3 carpets, and a personal belly dance show. Meet the globe-trotting budget aristocrats, part-time cultural critics, full-time whiners. Excuse me, but we're not in Rome. They sneer as if Istanbul, home to thousands of years of history, culture, and chaos, should price itself like a gas station in rural Moldova. Apparently, unless your city has a Louis Vuitton flagship store and a population of pigeons with Italian accents, you have no right to charge more than pocket lint for a meal. In Rome, they'll drop €18 on a lukewarm cappuccino served with attitude and a view of a pigeon-infested piazza and then write magical on TripAdvisor. They'll pay €15 to sit on a wobbly chair next to a dumpster because it has a view of a cracked fountain. London, £6 for a biscuit that looks like regret, or £18 for a latte made by a guy with a mustache and a superiority complex. Oh wow, so authentic. New York, they'll spend $40 on toast and a server's attitude and say, such a cool spot, love the industrial decor. Paris, they will gladly fork over €9 for a baguette and €12 for a thimble of espresso because, c'est la vie. In Istanbul, the moment they see a 150 lira price tag on brunch, which is about €3.50, it's a scam, daylight robbery, where's the poverty I ordered? Suddenly, they become war correspondents reporting live from the front lines of inflation. Coffee is 120 lira? That's insane, we're not in Paris. Exactly, you're not. You're in a city that's older, richer in history, and, hate to break it to you, buddy, has better coffee. But sure, let's cry because your money isn't buying you colonial superiority. These people will drop €300 a night on a shoebox hotel in Paris with a mold problem and call it charming. But when an Istanbul boutique hotel with an actual view of the Bosphorus charges them €100, it's suddenly exploitation. I mean, God forbid Turkish people want to eat, live, and survive in their own city. God forbid a coffee costs more than 100 lira. Suddenly it's ridiculous. We're not in London. No, you're in a city that has been shaping civilization since before your precious capitals even existed. I mean, Rome fell, Paris was a swamp, London was mud, Istanbul was a throne. Local inflation, exchange rates, rising rents, irrelevant. They came to Istanbul to feel superior, not to understand economics. God forbid a Turkish cafe charges a fair price. They'll rant that Turkey isn't developed enough to justify the prices, all while using the Wi-Fi, sipping third-wave coffee, and posting aesthetic photos on Instagram captioned "Hidden Gem." You came to Istanbul because you saw some pretty photos and read a couple of top 10 things to see in Istanbul lists, but you couldn't be bothered to Google the average cost of a meal? The fact that you didn't look into inflation in Turkey is really cute. Why bother when the only research you need is figuring out how to make your selfies look deep and meaningful? Heaven forbid you actually check if you can afford the places you're entering. But hey, you're a tourist. Prices don't apply to you, right? And for those of you out there who love the I shouldn't have to pay this much argument, newsflash, Istanbul isn't a discount store. You're not getting Black Friday prices just because you've flown halfway across the world. You didn't land in a reality TV episode where everything is handed to you on a silver platter. If you're this sensitive about the price of a coffee, maybe you should stick to destinations where the coffee is served in a paper cup, and with a side of ignorance and a free pass to act like the whole city should be living in your financial fantasy land. They whine about prices without knowing a single thing about Turkey's 65% inflation rate. Locals are grinding, businesses are struggling, and you're crying over your oatmeal cappuccino not being budget-friendly? This isn't a tourism theme park. It's a living, breathing megacity with rent, bills, and a skyline that makes Manhattan look like a Lego set. They see Hagia Sophia and gasp, so beautiful, but still believe A city with a 1,000-year-old cathedral mosque hybrid should charge third-world prices for first-class views. Istanbul has survived emperors, sultans, crusades, earthquakes, coups, and now, most tragically, TripAdvisor influencers. And let's talk about the vibe hypocrisy. In Rome, a waiter can ignore them for 45 minutes, slap down a €17 espresso, and they'll say, "Wow, so authentic." But in Istanbul, if a waiter doesn't immediately offer free tea and a back massage, it's "the service is cold." They'll pay $60 for a fusion taco in Brooklyn made by, I don't know, a DJ, but haggle over 30 lira with a guy selling handmade jewelry in Kadıköy who's feeding his entire family. They roll into the city expecting poverty wrapped in charm. They think the Bosphorus exists for their viewing pleasure, that ancient architecture should come with a 50% tourist discount, and that locals should smile gratefully as they undertip them with condescension and leftover currency. You act like a 200 lira breakfast is an international crime, while ignoring the fact that Turkish people are paying that without the benefit of a foreign salary, in a country crushed by inflation. But you're too busy counting lira on your calculator app to notice the privilege leaking from your pores. And the fake moral high ground is just chef's kiss. It's not about the money, it's about the principles. No, Karen, if it were about principles, you wouldn't be undertipping your guide while wearing a €400 linen set you bought for the aesthetic. And yet, they will post their Bosphorus selfies with captions like "underrated gem" while complaining that dinner cost more than €10. They'll romanticize a culture they fundamentally don't respect. But here's the punchline. You're not being clever, you're not being worldly, you're not exposing injustice. You're just loud, lazy, and embarrassingly unaware. Istanbul isn't overpriced. You're just not used to paying fair values in places you don't respect. You're just too lazy to do a single ounce of research. If you can't handle the prices, maybe you shouldn't have walked into a 5-star cafe or an iconic spot expecting the local experience on a dollar store budget. If you thought you'd walk in and get the same deal as a local living through a financial crisis, you're even more out of touch than your Instagram captions suggest. Newsflash, inflation in Turkey is around 65%, so yeah, those prices you're whining about, they're not a scam, they're a reflection of reality. Oh, and let's talk about the best part, the absolute audacity to compare Istanbul to Paris, London, Rome, as if the city that once ruled the Byzantine and Ottoman empires isn't in the same league. Honey, your history book is crying. Istanbul isn't trying to be those cities. It preceded them, outlasted them, and still stands as one of the most complex, layered, beautiful urban sprawls on the planet. And you're mad because your cake wasn't cheap enough? If you're broke, say that, but don't disguise it as social commentary. Here's the reality. Overpriced coffee is overpriced everywhere. Istanbul doesn't owe you a discount because you think your euros are more noble than the lira. It is one of the greatest cities on earth, ancient, chaotic, beautiful, modern, messy, alive. It's not a budget version of somewhere else. It is the moment. And if you can't handle that, maybe stick to cities where the prices match your delusions. But please, keep complaining. It'll make your photos look that much more authentic. And continue explaining how you could have had this cheaper in Paris. We're all ears. Oh, and by the way, your overpriced coffee is getting cold.